Sup guys, Fat Archon here, bringing another 40k army review. Today we're doing one I've been meaning to do for a while, Death Guard. I'm gonna go over some of their best units, got a few combos I set aside, and then at the end of this, I'll load some lists I put together, a few of which I think are pretty spicy, especially for Death Guard at least. So, before we get too far into it, I do need to address the, big diseased elephant in the room. Unfortunately, Death Guard, they do, their index leaves a lot to be desired. Let's just put it that way. I will say, I don't think they're as bad as we originally thought. I am certainly guilty of when the index first came out, I totally thought it was like, okay, this is like one of the worst books, nothing has any synergy, they're slow as hell, blah, 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 blah. So, while yes, they do obviously still have a bunch of issues, and unfortunately they are still one of the, lower win rate armies, I don't think it's, as bad as we thought. There are some really, powerful and fun combos that they have access to. Also, too, GW, just yesterday, I think, released the, official win rates for all the armies. Death Guard, if their numbers are true, they're only 2 to 3% lower than literally half the armies in 40k, so they're really not that far behind, all things considered. I do firmly believe that once we get the FAQ, they'll jump up quite a bit as well. Probably get a bunch of point drops, and I wouldn't be surprised if GW actually tweaks some of their rules, because there has been a decent amount of backlash. Something I should say too, so whenever I talk about an army not being that good, they're struggling, all that, blah blah blah, I'm talking about competitive play. If you're doing Garage Hammer or games with your friends, casual play, that sort of stuff, I promise you guys, I swear to you, you will have a fun time with Death Guard. Do not fret that hard about them. You can definitely win games. So long as your opponent's not a win-at-all-cost player, doing cheesy lists or whatever, 100% you can still win them, and you should definitely at least have a fun time. I do think Death Guard seems one of the more popular armies, especially for newer players. I feel like Death Guard makes the first army for a lot of people I've met. They were my first Chaos army as well. So it was really important to me that I get this video out there, because I felt bad doing that index review. I had to be honest about my feelings or whatever, but I did want to put something out there that's more productive, something that's all right, let's see what we can build with these guys. Sure, they got their issues, but you got to work with what you got. Let's see what we can play with. Before we hop too far into it, just super quick channel update. We already surpassed 1,500 subscribers, which is nuts. Literally just 3 days ago, we were around 1,400, so it's insane. We're still, growing really quick. If you haven't already, do consider, subscribing. It does mean a lot to me. Anytime I look at that, look at my phone, I see I got a new sub, puts a little smile on my face. So, I appreciate that if you guys could consider it. If you haven't already, at the very least, give the video a thumbs up if you could. That helps the metrics, gets more eyeballs on it, so I would appreciate if you at least hit that little thumbs up down there. Maybe leave a comment as well. I do, if you have any questions whatsoever, it doesn't even have to be about Death Guard, just 40k in general, I answer pretty much every single question. You need help with your list or something, you are more than welcome to post it. A lot of people have been doing that lately, and I love it. I love interacting with you guys. That's my favorite thing. Also, too, I do have a Patreon that I recently set up. I actually got a few, patrons already, which I really appreciate. Coffee, you're the man. I really appreciate that. Charlie K, you are awesome as well. Bill, you've been a boss. You were the first, so I really appreciate y'all. The link's in the description if anybody else wants to consider it. So that would be helpful. Everything goes into the channel. Anyways, with all that out of the way, we can hop right into it, and we're going to start off with one of my favorite units in pretty much every Chaos army, the beloved Death Guard Cultist. So, something you need to realize when we're talking about Death Guard, every single Death Guard unit gets sticky objectives. So while if you look over, you're do they not have an ability? In a sense they don't, in a sense they do too, but everybody has a sticky objectives on a cheap 55 point model unit like this. That is insanely good to have and very important to have as well. What I really like about these guys, so they do sort of have an ability. They have Scout's 6-inch. They also, too, they themselves have a 6-inch move, which is blazing fast for Death Guard. Next, Chaos Spawn, they're one of the fastest foot models or foot units that we have access to. So I do rate that pretty highly. If you think with that Scout 6-inch and then their own 6-inch move, turn 1, in a sense, you can have a 12-inch move. That's literally over double your normal infantry, and that's triple what a Terminator could do. So I do think that's a big deal. That gets you onto the no man's land, the central objectives real quick, which again is vital for an army like Death Guard that is, like, on the whole, like, one of the slowest armies, or are the slowest armies. So I do think, like, while it's not the flashiest unit ever, I do think that's really important. Other than that, you know, they're just a real cheap little chaff. They do a bunch of things. You got scoring, you got screening. Again, you can get some board control by getting on the middle of the board. I think all that stuff's very valuable. Gotta think too, their equipment's not like the worst. Sure, they hit on 4s or whatever, but they have access to the grenade launcher and the heavy stubber, and also a flamer. All of those are free, so of course you're automatically tossing them in there. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, math hammer wise, like points efficiency, they're not that far behind like even Plague Marines or whatever. So definitely don't be sleeping on these guys. Almost every list I write pretty much has, like, between 1 to 3 of these cultists. They're not battle line, unfortunately, so you are restricted to only 3, but rarely would you bring that many more. So if you, like, put together your list and you realize, oh, I don't have that many, like, bodies on the board, or, ooh, I need more scoring or whatever, you got a perfect answer right here. Definitely do not sleep on the cultists. I've always liked them a lot, and I always will. Next up, alright, we got the classic infantry, or the classic just like model for Death Guard, period. Got the Plague Marines. These guys, I actually think they're pretty alright. For only 100 points, like, you get a lot of, like, bang for your buck for the cost you're paying. My favorite thing about them is going to be the equipment options you got. You can deck these guys out plenty of different ways. For each 5 models, you can bring what? You can bring a Blight launcher, and then you can bring 2 special weapons, or you can bring up to 4, like, melee weapons. You can bring 2 of the heavy plague weapons and 2 of the bubonic weapons. So you can kit these guys out for either, like, full-on melee or full-on ranged. I wouldn't do mix. Like, you should try to avoid mix. It's in 40k, it's generally best, like, specialize your units. Me, personally, I almost always lean towards the, like, ranged firepower, because then you don't have to worry about screens or, like, you know, not failing your charge, all that sort of silly stuff. Nah, you just get them in line of sight and you shoot them. Probably the best way to run these guys, most likely, and probably what you'll see the most often, is going to be the full-on flamers. So you can bring, for a 10-man unit, a full, like, 10-man, you can bring 4 flamers with them. Each of them, too, they have anti-infantry, either 4-up or anti-infantry 2-up, which is actually a pretty big deal. I will say, like, Death Guard on a whole, they can mulch through infantry pretty well, especially when you got access to guys like these. Other thing you got to realize, you can buff the hell out of these guys with one of the millions of characters you got access to, so that is pretty cool. Like, whatever you need. If you're going full-on melee, oh, maybe I want fight first. If you're going full-on ranged or flamers, you bring, like, a foul Blightspawn, who also gives you the fight first, but he can put his own, like, 2-damage flamer in there as well. Like, sure, that doesn't mesh if you're going range with the melee or whatever. Either way, I do like Plague Marines quite a bit. 2 objective control. They got the toughness 5. 5-inch move isn't the best, but it's not the worst. It's only an inch less than most other units. So they are, like, fairly resilient. And again, you get pretty damn good firepower. That Blight launcher is fine. 24-inch range, 2 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 6, minus 1 AP and 2 damage each. So that's pretty awesome. You can get 2 of those in a 10-man unit. I think a lot of times, too, you will actually run a 10-man, although 5-man's, like, just as valid. Depends on the scenario. You might consider tossing them in a Rhino just so you know, you can get them up the board a little quicker. But otherwise, yeah, man. Plague Marines, I think they're, like, legit. I think they're totally fair, and they all are battle lines. So if you want to spam a boatload of them, you totally got access to it. Again, I think the 4 flamer route will be probably the most common and probably one of the best you can do. The other route is you could do, like, Melta guns if you want. I do like Melta. That was originally what I was going to do with them because, you know, that's sort of, in a sense, it's like anti-everything. But again, I kind of like the flamers. Depends on the rest of your list. If you don't have much anti-infantry somehow, then for sure, these guys probably do pretty well there. Again, you can do the melee loadout as well. Heavy plague weapons, not bad at all. You can bring 4 of those in a full 10-man. 3 attacks each, hit on 4s, but strength 8, minus 2, 2 damage each. It's not bad in the least bit to have. You can also do the bubonic weapons, which is basically like a cursed weapon. 4 attacks, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage each. So that's pretty fine right there. Again, I like them a fair bit. I will say their ability freaking sucks. Remorseless, so basically if they're within range of an objective marker, you add 1 to your battle shock. Woo! You already got sticky objectives, so, like, battle shock really doesn't matter that much for Death Guard, like, as a whole, period. So terrible ability, but everything else not that bad with them. Ooh, alright, so next up we got Spawn. So, alright, Fat Archon has to admit something to you. When I first read the Chaos Space Marine Index, I swear to God, man, it said that they came in units of 1 to 2. So I was convinced that they were, like, 80 points each in CSM, 75 points in Death Guard, 65 points in each in World Eaters. No, I recently discovered by looking through them again, no, that's for 2 of them, so I'm an idiot. They're actually not that bad when you consider that there's actually 2 of them. That literally doubles what I thought they were bringing to the table for the same price. For Death Guard, they're actually not that bad. They're really fast. 8-inch move is like super ultra like Ferrari speed for Death Guard, so that's pretty good. Fairly resilient with their T5. They do only have a 4-up save and no invul. 4 wounds each though, and they do regen wounds on each player's command phase. I will say chances are if they get shot by anything like real, they're probably gonna die, but that's good. That means that something else, something more important is not getting shot in your army, so I do think like they're a valid consideration. The melee's not terrible either. It is like variable. It is random, the number of attacks, and they do only hit on 4s, but otherwise you're getting some 2 damage attacks in there, so I do kind of like that. Throw on the Feel No Pain as well. A 5-up Feel No Pain is essentially like equivalent to a 50% boost, so they're practically like 6 wound models each, so I do like that a good bit. I will say, like, most of the time, you probably spend those points on, like, something else, but if you need something speedy or you got a game plan in mind, yeah, man, Spawn are totally valid, totally worth, like, considering for your list. Next up, Blightlord Terminators. Alright, these ones are debatable, for sure. They're really freaking slow. 4-inch move is, like, ridiculously slow. I hope that's one of the themes GW, like, revisits in the FAQ. That or give them, like, even a better points drop. Speaking of the points, though, these are, like, one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest Terminators that I'm aware of. They're only 175 points. That's a pretty big savings. That's, like, 20 points cheaper than a lot of the other Terminators you'll see out there. On top of all that, they are T6, which is an okay breakpoint. A lot of like elite weapons are going to be around strength 6, so that's cool. Instead of wounding on 3s, they'll wound you on 4s sometimes. Also too, the odds of being wounded on 2s are much less. There's a fair amount of like strength 10 weapons out there. These guys won't care as much when it comes to that. Aside from that, you do got the Terminator profile, so 2-up save and a 4-up invul, which is very resilient. I do like that quite a bit. 3 wounds each is pretty good to have. For their loadouts, so it's kind of basic. For each 5, you can only bring like either 1 Blight Launcher or 1 Reaper Autocannon. I think either are valid. I kind of lean towards the Reaper Autocannon, just because you got the sustained hits and the dev wounds, so, like, there will be times where, like, pops off. Otherwise, the Blight Launcher is totally fine as well. Get some 2 damage attacks out there at the strength 6, so you go against any, like, T4 if they're within range of your aura, or T3, otherwise you wound them on 2s, so I do like that. You can give them Plague Spewers, which is definitely worth consideration. For their ability, so Blistering Fusillade. Each time a model in this unit makes a ranged attack, if it targets the closest eligible enemy unit, reroll a wound roll of 1. You do need to be really careful, because most of the time, so 4-inch move, you're almost always going to be deep striking these guys. I would, like, strongly recommend you do that. Probably don't want to be walking across the board and, like, advancing and not getting any shots or anything. So I do think you need to be wary about shooting the nearest target. If you were planning to charge them, like, you want to be, like, careful that you don't kill the closest models, because all of a sudden you might extend your charge. So you might go from a 9-inch charge, which is already, like, a pain in the butt, all of a sudden, like, a 10 or 11-inch charge, which you may as well, like, not even try at that point. Well, I mean, still try, but at that point your odds are, like, incredibly slim. So do be careful with who you're targeting. That said, the turn after they deep strike, yeah, man, go wild. Take advantage of that ability. For 175 points, actually, I do like that quite a bit. That's pretty cheap. They make good, like, character caddies as well. I will say, alright, the Deathshroud are probably a better character caddy just because they're cheaper. But if you were to have 5, so if you were to have the same amount of models each, these are, like, cheaper per model than the Deathshroud are. Their melee is not nearly as good, though you can give them a Flail of Corruption. Fortunately, it's only 1 per 5, but that would be 6 attacks. Hit on 3s, strength 5, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. By the way, I should have mentioned in the beginning, like, almost everything has lethal hits, which does add up over time, where that's extra valuables versus, like, super tough models. So, like, maybe they got a Knight or something that normally be wounded on a 6. Well, all of a sudden, like, you have much better efficiency because you're going to be automatically wounding them on hits of 6s. So I do like that a fair bit. I don't think they're terrible at all. That super slow move, like, really holds them back, but if you're smart with them, I do think Blightlords and the Deathshroud, I think they can still, like, pull their weight. Speaking of Deathshroud, these guys are like, I think their specialty is going to be like bodyguard. They're like perfect. Anytime you bring a character and you want to keep them like safe or whatever, these guys are like one of the first ones you want to consider over the Blightlords just because they're cheaper for the MSU unit. These guys are only 140 points, which is a pretty good deal. Other than that, so same profile as the Blightlords, so T6, 2-up save, fantastic, 4-up invul, 3 wounds each, so we like that a lot. They have a pretty good ability as well, especially if you're using them as a bodyguard. Basically, if attack comes into them and they have a character with them, if the strength is higher than their toughness, you -1 from the wound roll. That's actually pretty important because, come on, we're playing Death Guard, so the whole thing is like being resilient. This plays directly into that, so I do like that quite a bit. On top of that, they got the Plagueburst Gauntlets. You can bring 4 gauntlets in total for an MSU squad, so 3 of them. It is only strength 3, but it's anti-infantry 4-up, ignoring cover and auto-hitting, of course, so I do like that a decent bit. There's also ways to buff that with, like, reroll wounds or that sort of stuff, depending on what character you put in there. Their melee is also pretty spicy too, way better than Blightlords. They get so they get the Man Reaper with 2 different profiles. For the strike, it's going to be 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, which is excellent. Strength 8, -2 AP, 2 damage each. So these guys are little blenders in like close combat. Hitting on 2s is like a pretty big deal. Strength 8 is also excellent. You got to think too with the aura. If you go up to a T9 model, you know, something like that guy, get them down to an 8, and suddenly you're winning on 4s. Not as bad as it was before. Of course, they do have lethal hits on top of that, so a lot to like with these guys. Again, if you're bringing a character that's like in Terminator armor, these should be one of the first things you think of. Definitely think they're pretty good. Definitely think they can pull their weight. Again, they're slow, so you need to be mindful where you're like deep striking them and have like a game plan of how you're going to use them. But it also helps they look cool as hell. These are one of my favorite looking Death Guards, so definitely got that on their side. Next up, we got the trusty Rhino. So, of all the armies that could use a Rhino, Death Guard are definitely one of the ones that are up there. Now, I will say, he has a really restrictive, like, passenger rule. He can basically only carry, Plague Marines, and some of the characters. Can't carry Cultists, can't carry Spawn, definitely can't do Terminators, so you do got some issues there. That said, like, Plague Marines are the perfect addition to put in there. Goonhammer actually mentioned in their article, they were talking about putting like Malignant Sorcerers in here, because they have pretty okay shooting, because you do have 2 firing ports, so you just put like 2 lone Malignant Sorcerers in there and just have them shoot each turn. I don't know if that's like the most efficient thing ever, but it is like a fun idea at the least, and it would be some of your like better shooting, because it's like D3 damage, so I do like that. Again, a Rhino's going to help you like make up for your slow speed. On top of that, like, it too is T9 with the 10 wounds, so all that's, like, a lot to love right there. I do think, like, again, of all the armies you could use a transport for, Death Guard are one of the top ones. Definitely consider it if you got the points. Me, personally, I usually bring more units over the transports, but, you know, different people have different styles. That's just the way I do it, and I know for a fact that some people have had pretty good success with the Rhinos, and the Land Raider for that matter, so definitely, like, worthy of consideration. Next up, we got the beloved Land Raider. So again, of all the armies that can make use of a transport, Death Guard's one of the ones that are up there. Also, too, with that assault ramp rule, so he can move, disembark, and still charge. That's like a huge deal. He also can carry Terminators, so you could put like some Deathshroud down there, something like that, have this guy move his 10-inch and then disembark and still get your charge. That's more than doubling their average movement. Now, I will say, you're paying quite a bit for it. I believe it's $260, somewhere around that. So, quite expensive, but you do get the las cannons. You get the Soul Shatter las cannons on top of that. You get 2 of them, so that'd be 4 shots, which is excellent, man. You get the Strength 12, -3, D6 +1 damage. That's actually some of the better, like, anti-tank firepower you have. Again, you're paying a lot for it, but you do get the excellent profile on top of it. T12, 2-up saves, 16 freaking wounds. Certain armies, like in a mirror match, if they didn't bring enough anti-tank, like, they just, like, won't be able to take care of this guy. Certain armies won't have much, if any, like, Strength 12 weaponry to, like, deal with this. So that is, like, pretty valuable there as well. It is debatable. Is he worth the cost? I don't know. You tell me. Again, I usually just bring more models, but there's definitely game plans and different lists that can make use of this guy, so he's worth, like, again, consideration at the very least. Next up, ooh, all right. I love the Helbrutes in like every Chaos army just because they almost always bring a fun little ability. And Death Guard, he actually has a pretty good one, I'd say. So, infused with the Blessings of Nurgle. Each time this model is selected to shoot or fight, after it's finished making its attacks, choose one enemy unit that was just hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the start of your next turn, that enemy is always considered to be within contagion range of this model. So that means, that's like actually a pretty big deal. That means you can do the -1 toughness on just about like any model he can see, as long as they're within range of your guns. That does like shake up the loadout options that you want to use. Normally I go like heavy anti-tank, so like I would almost always bring like the twin las cannon, for example. With this guy, you kind of want to consider getting more firepower out there, so you could consider like twin plague heavy bolter. It is only 3 shots, but still, like, that's better than just a single shot. The missile launcher, maybe. That does like take up your melee arm slot, so like do be careful with that. But you could do like the missile launcher, go with for like a frag shot if you need to, because that way you get D6 shots at least. Flamer, okay, Flamer's pretty short range, but I don't know if you're gonna rush him up there, maybe you could do that. So do be mindful of it. I would think, so me personally, if I was bringing this guy, I would almost do, like, almost always do one Helbrute Fist, because that gives you the Combi Bolter on there, so that's good. Not only do you get melee, but you get a couple Combi Bolter shots at 24-inch range, and then I probably, I don't know, I probably would do, like, the Heavy Bolter, because you really want to get that ability off. That is a big deal. Turn 1, you only got a 3-inch bubble. Turn 2, only 6-inch. Turn 3, 9-inch. So a lot of times, you're not taking advantage of your army rule until, like, turn 3. A lot of times, this guy kind of fixes that up. At the end, we'll show some fun little combos as well. You can totally mix this guy up with some other units and have some, like, some really powerful little abilities. You can get -2 toughness on just about any model you can see, basically. Long story short, he is a little spendy. I'm not going to say he's, like, the most competitive thing ever. He's 155 points and doesn't have that much output, but if you plan for it in your list, or maybe you just want to do, like, a really fun little combo, I definitely think he's, like, worth consideration. On top of that, T9 with a 2-up save. 2-up save is actually a pretty big deal. Like, I like that quite a bit. Only 6-inch moves, so he is slow, but hey, so's the rest of your army, so not the worst thing ever. Again, like, worth consideration. Take a look at this guy if you haven't already. Next up, one of everybody's favorite little models, the cute little Myphitic Blight Haulers. These guys are excellent in Death Guard, I would say. They're one of the better anti-tank options you got access to. They're only 115 points, so they're like really cheap. You bring them in squads of 1 to 3. I would mostly do like just 1 each. That way you can spread the board, not have to worry about leadership, any of that sort of stuff. The profile is great, man. 10-inch move, so blazing fast, T9, 3-up save with a 5-up invul and 10 wounds each for 115 points. Like, that is very fair. I think that's actually pretty good. Ranged weapons, so they're mostly anti-tank. Or they're anti-tank. It's essentially what they are. So they got the missile launcher and then the multi-melta. Multi-melta is only 18-inch range, so you do have to get closer. But again, you got a 10-inch move, so really freaking fast. 2 shots, hit on 3s, strength 9, -4 AP, so some of the best AP in the entire army. And then D6 damage with the Melta 2 rule. They kind of suck in melee, so be careful with that. They'd only get 4 attacks. Strength 6, though, -1 AP, 1 damage, so really not that good. Their rule, though, is pretty good for the whole anti-tank thing. So I have the Tank Hunter's rule. Each time you make a range attack that targets a vehicle, you add 1 to the wound roll. So all of a sudden, like, multi-melt is not as bad as it would be versus a lot of other units. You're basically wounding, like, any to every vehicle in the game, just about, on a 4-up. So that's pretty awesome right there. Again, I think these guys are actually really good. One of the more competitive units you have access to. It helps that they're cute as hell. And also, too, man, their models are super cheap. They're only 30 bucks each. That's a steal in Warhammer 40k. Next up, we got the Foetid Bloat drone. This guy, so basically the same profile. So 10-inch move, T9, 3-up save, and the 5-up invul and 10 wounds. So it's an identical profile. He does have fly, for what that's worth, in 10th edition. He's got a few different weapon loadouts. All 3 of them are viable in my eyes as well. So the first one, you got the heavy Blight launcher. That'd be 36-inch range, so very good range. 6 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 8, so pretty good strength. -2 AP and 2 damage each. Not bad in the least bit. Remember, you got lethal hits and like everything. I'm not mentioning it all the time, but almost any weapon I mention, you got lethal hits. For the other range option, you can do dual Plague Spitter, so that's pretty awesome. You have a little, like, Overwatch, little murder machine. You give them 2 of them. They're anti-infantry, 2-up, ignores cover and auto-hitting, of course. only 12-inch range, but D6 attacks each, strength 6, which is really good, minus 1 AP, 1 damage each, so that also is viable. The last one, everybody's like favorite for the most part, at least looks-wise, Flesh Mower. And that'd be melee only, but 10 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 7, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each, so that's a pretty outrageous amount of melee. He is a bit more spendy than the Blight Haulers. He's 135. I will admit, so the profiles are like identical. I would usually go for the Blight Haulers over this guy, but if you're going for like the melee version, like not bad at all. Also too, honestly guys, I kind of like the heavy Blight Launcher the most. Again, you're getting that 36-inch range, so you don't have to worry about the screens or any of that sort of stuff. Like, you're almost guaranteed to be able to shoot what you see. And it's only a few attacks less than the Flesh Mower, if you think about it. So basically, you get like 5 turns of shooting out of this guy, whereas you only get quote-unquote, 3 to 4 turns of melee out of this guy, most likely. So I do think the heavy Blight Launcher is totally a viable addition. It used to be something you'd almost always skip. In 10th edition, I think it's actually pretty alright. Ooh, alright, next up, we got pretty much everybody's, like, favorite Death Guard vehicle for obvious reasons, and for very good reasons as well. You got the Plagueburst Crawler. This guy's a pimp. He arguably is, like, an auto-include in Death Guard. I'll say, for the list I'm gonna load, I'm pretty sure, like, every single list brings 3 of these guys for a damn good reason. He's like the whole package, alright? So, really good profile, actually. So, 10-inch move, yet again. T10, he's got a 2-up save, which is excellent, 5-up invul, and 12 wounds each, so all of that is really, really good. He's kind of expensive, kinda. He's 175 points, so a bit more spending than the other options he got. For that, though, so you can bring Entropy Cannons or the Plague Spitters. I personally would go Entropy Cannons basically every single time. Those are essentially, they're like pseudo-las cannons. They're only 24-inch range, 1 attack each, but you get 2 of them. Only strength 10, which is still alright. I wish it was strength 12, but still. Minus 3 AP, excellent. D6 plus 1 damage, so I do like that a fair bit. Again, gives you more anti-tank, which is one of like the bigger issues with Death Guard. On top of that, though, so you get the Plagueburst Mortar. You get the big-ass mortar on his back. It's going to be Blast, which is a huge deal, Indirect, and of course lethal hits, so 48-inch range, so you can basically shoot across the table like anything. D6 plus 3 attacks, again with the Blast, hits on 3s, strength 8, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. There's ways to buff this with like Lord of Virulence, so he can be hit on 2s if you can see your target, so that's pretty awesome, guys. Getting a 2 damage mortar across the table hitting on 2s is like very good to have. On top of that, you can also give him the Heavy Slugger or the Volley Gun, the Rothail Volley Gun. I believe, yeah, I would pretty much always do the Heavy Slugger. I just think it's way better. Now, with the Rothail, you do get, like, Rapid Fire 3, so at 12 inches, you would get the 6 attacks, but I'd rather have the 4 attacks with the minus 1 AP versus the no AP, so I basically always go Heavy Slugger. For his ability, it's okay, so basically, if you hit a infantry unit in your shooting phase, they have to take a Battle Shock test. We've been over this a million times, like, forcing Battle Shock's really not that powerful. There will be times where it's pretty handy, though, versus, like, Custodes, for example. That actually could be a pretty big deal, so, like, don't forget you have it. Don't rely on it at all, but don't forget you have it. Again, I think this guy is, like, damn near an auto-include, and not to mention, like, the model's classic. This is, like, a beautiful Death Guard model that everybody loves seeing on the table. Very fun to paint as well. So again, like, if you haven't already, go out and like buy 2 or 3 of these guys. I definitely think he's like worth getting. Also too, he's been like viable for as long as I can remember. I don't think he's ever not been like pretty decent, so I would expect he'll continue to be like pretty good, even after the FAQ, even after the Codex. Next up, we got Defiler. So, I actually think for Death Guard, of all the armies, Death Guard can probably make the most use of a Defiler. He's kind of expensive. I want to say he's 205, somewhere around that. But you do get, like, a pretty nasty profile. Basically, he's mixed role. He gets, like, pretty good melee and pretty good shooting all together, along with that pretty good profile. So, 8-inch move. He does have Scuttling Walker, so he can move other units, including vehicles and monsters. Also ignores terrain that's 4 inches or less. It's actually a pretty big deal. Again, we're talking about Death Guard, so normally pretty slow. Being able to like get around other units that might be blocking you, I definitely like that quite a bit. For his melee, I love it. Alright, so he's got Defiler Claws. It's 5 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 16, which is insane, minus 3 AP, D6 plus 1 damage. This guy is an excellent target for the tank shock stratagem. Definitely don't forget you have it. That'd be an average of, like 3 or 4 mortal wounds, and if you roll hot, then you'll do even more than that. Definitely like that there. for his weaponry, you got a few options. So, well, first of all, he always comes with Defiler Cannon. So this is Blast, 48-inch range, D6 plus 3 attacks, strength 10, fantastic, minus 1 AP, 3 damage each, so some of the better, like, native shooting you have access to. He, too, so it's Blast, so that also can be buffed by the Lord of Virulence, so don't forget that at all. You could also, too, you throw the freaking Havoc Launcher on this guy, which is also Blast, start hitting on 2s with that, or at least, like, always hit on 3s at the very least. Other than that, you can do the Twin Last Cannon. That's probably the route I would normally go. I like that Twin Last Cannon a lot. Again, it gives you anti-tank, strength 12, which we want, the minus 3 AP and the D6 plus 1 damage. Basically, this guy's like a, you know, good at everything, but master of none, so pretty decent to have. All in all, I do think he's a pretty good unit. He basically, like, fills up some of the gaps the rest of your army may not be able to, like, handle that well normally. Again, you are paying for it. That 205 points, pretty spandy. You can bring in a lot of other options for that. But if you need some, like, heavy hitters in your army, definitely take a look at the Defiler. Again, he's, like, a beautiful model. Who doesn't like the Murder Crab? Ooh, alright, next up, we got the Predator. So, Predator Annihilator is the one I showed here, but the Destructor is actually just as vital. I might even say the Destructor might even be better. So, the Annihilator is 130, the Destructor is 140. Depending on which one you use, so Destructor is going to be like anti-elite infantry. That's going to be like his main thing, whereas this guy's going to be like anti-vehicle, of course. Again, for Death Guard, you do want anti-vehicle, so it is debatable like which one you want to bring. All that said, so great profile for the price, guys. 10-inch move, T10, only a 3-up save and 11 wounds, no invul. I've mentioned it before, but you don't really see like worse than 3 AP that often, and cover's like incredibly easy to get, especially for a vehicle like this. It's going to be sitting back. I would hope that you would keep like partly behind a building so you almost always get that cover save. For 130 points, like that's a steal. I would say this is one of the better units in the entire index. If you haven't already been running this guy or like haven't tried him yet, put a few on your list and see how they act. Again, man, you're shooting across the table, getting the T10 profile, all that stuff for fairly cheap. Like I mentioned, the Destructor may very well be like the better option. He gets, it's only strength 9, but it is going to be the minus 1 AP and 3 damage each. His ability too, if you target infantry, it's plus 1 AP as well, and rapid fire too. So suddenly he's putting out, what, 6 3 damage attacks, which is definitely a bit more reliable than a 3 strength, admittedly strength 12, but oh, actually the Predator Twin Last Cannon is actually strength 14 as well, so even Knights will be winning on 3s. Again, I think this is one of the better units in the entire index. Definitely give them a look-see if you haven't already. Some of the lists I'm going to load later, like you'll see. Yeah, man, you can lean pretty heavy on this guy, and I would think it's pretty scary. If you went out, if you like came to the table and there's freaking 6 Predators staring at you, yeah, man, I'd be a little worried myself. Ooh, alright, we're on to the characters. So to start off, we got Malignant Plaguecaster. This guy, I actually like this guy quite a bit. So, fairly cheap, relatively cheap. He's only 75 points. He does have a pretty basic profile, though, so 5-inch move, T5, only a 3-up save with no invul and 4 wounds. So, that does leave a little to be desired. I will say, you can attach him with Plague Marines, and that's probably the way to do it. You know, keep him safe. Like I mentioned earlier, like Goonhammer said, you can toss him inside a Rhino as well. Let him shoot with his little mine bullets. Speaking of, he has really good shooting. That's why I kind of like this guy. Some of the better shooting in the index. It is short range, only 12-inch range, but D6 plus 3 attacks, strength 6, minus 2 AP, and D3 damage, so that's all excellent. Don't forget you got the stratagem, so you can always boost that AP up to 3, maybe even minus 4 AP, which would be pretty insane. And the D3 damage, like, yes, it is variable, but it's multi-damage, that's auto-hitting. I like that a boatload. You toss this guy in with the Plague Marines, maybe even put a Blightspawn in there as well, like, hot diggity damn, dude, you got a pretty damn good Overwatch unit right there. And melee, he's not that big a slouch either, only 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, but again, strength 6, minus 1, D3 damage, so all that I like quite a bit. For his abilities, though, so that's where this guy kind of pops. So the first one's going to be Gift of Contagion. In your shooting phase, you choose one enemy within 18 inches invisible, you roll a d6, on a 1 you hurt yourself, but on a 2-up, until your next shooting phase, so a good while, each time that that enemy unit makes a melee attack, you subtract 1 from the wound roll. Again, we're Death Guard, we're trying to be resilient, so getting that minus 1, like, that's actually pretty important, especially if it's like turn 2 or something, you're about to have a huge, like, big melee brawl in the middle of the board or whatever. This guy can help you, like, survive that, help you come out on top. On top of that, though, so the one I like even more, so Pestilent Fallout. In your shooting phase, after you shot, if one or more of those attacks landed a wound on an infantry unit until your next turn, they subtract 2 from their move and from their advance and charge. That's actually, like, that's huge, especially in, like, a mirror match. Like, can you imagine, man, if you got that on, like, Terminators, for example, knock them down to a 2-inch move, like, your opponent might just want to quit right then and there. I do think that's pretty damn valuable. It does suck that you have to, like, land a wound, but again, his shooting's, like, not that bad in the least bit. I like that quite a bit. Now, do realize if you go with the Rhino route, which, like, I'm not sure how really competitive that is, although it's worth, like, trying at the very least, do realize that, yeah, you don't get to use the Pestilent Fallout ability, unfortunately. You only would get to use the main profile, so maybe you want to, like, disembark him first. Probably not, but, you know, just something to bear in mind. Again, for 75 points, I do not think this guy is bad at all. There are certain combos, like that Flamer combo I mentioned, where this guy will really shine. Definitely worth taking a look at. I love this model, too. It's, like, it's pretty unique. It's actually very unique. I can't think of another model that's anything like that at all. Maybe there are some out there, but I'm not too sure. If you know about one, leave a comment below. Anyways, alright, next up, we got, alright, this probably is, like, my favorite character in the entire army, period. The Terminator Sorcerer. He's only 80 points, so he's really cheap, has a pretty good profile, so sadly only 4-inch move, but nothing you can do about that. T6, 2-up save with the 4-up invul, so excellent. 5 wounds each, so this guy's, like, pretty damn resilient. On top of that, though, so before we go through his profiles, let's go through his abilities, because he has some really spicy ones. The first one's going to be Putrescent Vitality, so they actually updated this. So at the start of the fight phase, you choose one. Oh yeah, this is where they updated. So you don't choose an enemy unit within 18 inches. At the start of the fight phase, you just roll a dice. On a 1, you take D3 more wounds, unfortunately. On a 2-up, though, until the end of the phase, you subtract 1 from the damage. That is huge. That's such a big deal. You finally get your -1 damage for free without paying 2 CP on your Death Guard. He can only be attached to other Terminators, but still, that's excellent. They're 3-wound models. Getting the -1 damage on that, 3 damage attacks coming into you, all of a sudden, like, are basically, like, halved how much, like, output they're really going to do to you. That is a huge deal. That's what makes me love this guy. Again, for only 80 points, like, that's crazy. It gets even better, though. So, Pestilent Familiar. Once per battle, after selecting target for your psychic weapons, until the end of the phase, you improve the strength and the damage characteristic by 2. So it is only once per battle, but all of a sudden this guy straight up does have, like, your best shooting. So his Curse of the Leper, his focused version, which is what I would use this on, 24-inch range, 2d6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 6, -2, 1 damage each. Normally, you boost it with that, you're going up to strength 8, 3 damage each. 2d6, 3 damage attacks at strength 8 -2. That is crazy, guys. Again, you can do the +1 AP, maybe even +2 AP. If you boosted it up to the -4 AP on top of that, like, hot diggity dog, dude. I think I have a list that brings 3 of these guys. I think I generated that one to show you guys, but I do think there's some play there. Yeah, do not sleep on the Sorcerer Terminator. I genuinely think he's one of the best characters you have access to. Even in melee, he's not that bad, so you can boost up his Force Weapon as well. It would only be 4 attacks, but it would go up to the Strength 8 D3 +2 damage, so pretty wild right there. Definitely, again, man, I really, really like this guy. Excellent profile, like, and excellent point cost. Almost everything about this guy I really, really enjoy. Next up, we got the Chaos Lord, the generic Chaos Lord. This guy, too, he has some pretty good abilities. So, he's only 75 points, so fairly cheap. Pretty basic profile. 5-inch move, of course. T5, 3-up save with a 4-up invul, so pretty resilient there. And then 5 wounds each. Not bad at all for the price you're paying. On top of that, so, you know, he doesn't have the best loadout ever. You can give him, like, a combi weapon, which is probably the way I'd do it, and then you can do the, probably the Plague Fist, probably the route you'd go. 5 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 8, -2, 2 damage each, so no slouch in melee. You can only attach him to Plague Marine, so that would be, like, some of their better, like, damage output in the unit. On top of that, though, for abilities, his first one, Chaos Lord, anytime they make an attack of any kind, you get to reroll a hit roll of 1. Already, that's pretty good right there. And then he also has Desiccation Conduit, so this one's kind of sneaky and definitely, like, gives you access to a bunch of combos. While an enemy unit is within contagion range, at the end of each turn, roll a D6. On a 4-up, they take D3 mortal wounds. So that'd be at the end of both your turn and your opponent's turn, so twice per battle round. It doesn't say anything about for each like model with this ability. It just says each time a unit's within range of this model, they do it. So if you had 3 of these guys within range, you'd be rolling 3 dice for each unit within contagion range. On top of that, you can boost his range pretty easily. There's Morty, I'm pretty sure you got Stratagem. There's other ways like boost, or excuse me, not Stratagem, but you have the enhancement. There's different ways that you can boost that range if you really wanted to play into it. Now, how competitive that is, I'm not too sure. I will say, I bet you there are some competitive lists that can make use of that. Getting mortal wounds, that's actually pretty awesome. It's not only infantry or any of that stuff either, so like even knights you'd be doing like D3 mortal wounds to every now and then. You got to roll the 4-up. I definitely think this guy is actually pretty viable. You'll see in a second, we're almost to them, but for the Virons, or whatever they're called, the Foetid Virons, they can also join this guy, so you can have 2 characters in your unit and get like double your pleasure or whatever. Lots of little ways you can boost this guy. Definitely think he's pretty decent. There's also a Terminator version for 100 points. He's alright. I think you got better options when it comes to the Terminators. For Plague Marines, not bad at all. That reroll ones is actually like sneakily really good. Next up, we got the Tallyman. Alright, this guy probably is, like, next to maybe the Sorcerer Terminator, this guy probably is the best character. And actually, I could see the debate that, yeah, he's even better than that. First of all, so for his abilities, they're both of them are just fantastic. First one, anytime, whatever unit is leading, so Plague Marines, you add 1 to their hit roll. That's insane, man. All of a sudden, all of their weapons are hitting on 2s. That is excellent. On top of that, you got the 7-fold champ. So in your command phase, if he's on the battlefield, you roll 2d6. On a 7-up, you gain 1 CP. Again, it doesn't say anything about if only 1 of this model, so if you had 3 of these guys in your army, you would roll that 3 times. Now, you can only gain CP once, but maybe you fail the first time, maybe you fail the second time, ooh, third time I got it. So this guy's a little, like, command point generator, which I like a lot. That means that you can just spam your command points without being as concerned about them. Otherwise, like, very basic profile. The T5, 3-up save with no invul and only 4 wounds, so do be mindful of, like, snipers and that sort of stuff. And then for his weapons, they're all, like, crap. He's got a plasma pistol and then just a close combat weapon. So he's pretty terrible, like, in combat, but everything else, those abilities, like, definitely pay for him. He's really cheap as well. He's only 55 points. This guy might very well just be an auto-include. I was thinking, too, you could just, like, run him on his own. Maybe you're not bringing Plague Marines. Maybe you don't think they're that good. I think at 55 points, like, it would be viable to just bring 1 just all on his lonesome and hide him in, like, the back corner or something. Sure, if an enemy deep strikes within shooting range, yeah, they'll probably blast him. But otherwise, man, if you can keep him hidden, maybe screen him with your cultist or something like that, yeah, I do think that's viable. I don't think I made a list that's going to show it, but I was thinking a list where you just skip the Plague Marines, and this guy could be, like, your Warlord. At only 55 points, man, that's insanely good. Love the Tallyman. Alright, little side note, little tangent. I love 1d4 Chan for, like, lore especially. They're, like, army reviews or, like, Tactica or some of the funniest stuff ever. They go off about, like, how this is, like, the worst unit ever, and I just think it's, like, yeah, it's, like, the most adorable thing ever. 1d4 Chan, you're awesome, but not the best for, like, strategic advice. Anyways, next up we got the Biologus Putrifier. I love this guy's model, by the way. He's a little like mosquito, if you didn't like realize that. That's like he's got the beak and then the wings. Anyways, so he too is cheap. I believe he's only 60 points. I should mention, so all these guys that we're about to go over here, they're the Foetid Viron or whatever, so they can also be attached with another character. You just can't have duplicates, but otherwise the unit can have, yeah, 2 characters in total when you bring these guys. So for his ability, I actually like it a fair bit. So while he's leading a unit, Plague Marines, all of their weapons get lethal hits. That doesn't help that many weapons. It would help your, like, Meltas or your plasma guns if you're bringing those. But, more importantly, all of a sudden you're going to get crit hits on 5-ups. That literally doubles your amount of lethal hits that goes out. I think that's actually a pretty big deal. Easy little combo you can do is Tallyman plus this guy. All of a sudden you're hitting on 2s, and then all your 5-ups automatically wound. Like, I think that's actually a pretty clever, little clever combo right there. I will say you're, like, spending good points, and something you need to realize if you're like super buffing a, like, Plague Marine squad, most of these characters, at least the lieutenants, they don't bring much damage. This guy as well, he's only got plague knives. This guy literally just has close combat weapons like a plasma pistol, so you're not getting, like, much more damage for it. You're only getting the buffs to the unit itself, so you gotta think, is that worth the 110 points or whatever it would be for these 2 guys right there? It's debatable. Maybe it is, but again, it's debatable. Otherwise, though, he's also got explosive maladies. Basically, once per battle in your shooting phase, you can use the grenade stratagem for free, even if somebody else had used the grenade stratagem. That's okay, like, it's there, so you're going to use it for sure. And maybe if you go up against, like, I don't know, a 20-man, like, Poxwalker or something, that is kind of chill that you'll get to do a decent amount of mortal wounds to him. Not the most important thing ever, but again, it's free, so you may as well bring it. I love the crit hits on a 5-up. I think that is a big deal. I think there is definitely some play with this guy. Next up, yet again, another one of, like, potentially better characters in the book, Foul Blightspawn. There are a bunch of low combos with this guy, so I sort of mentioned it earlier. You can do Foul Blightspawn, who's a lieutenant, so you can attach him with somebody else, Malignant Plaguecaster, and then 10-man Plague Marines with 4 Flamers. You're getting a boatload of auto-hitting, like, Flamer equivalent, or Torrent, I guess I should say, shots going out there. This guy has a 2 damage Flamer at that, anti-infantry 2-up, auto-hitting, 12-inch range, d6 attacks, strength 7, minus 2 AP and 2 damage each. All that stuff is crazy. That is like an excellent profile. Yet again, you can boost that AP by 1, sometimes 2, if you're within range of an objective. So you get it up to AP 4, like that's insane as well. His ability, though, is where he really pops. So, Putrifying Stank. While he's leading a unit, models in that unit have the Fight's First ability. So if you do bring a melee version of the Plague Marines, or maybe you just toss in a few of the heavy Plague Weapons or whatever, this guy's going to give you that fight first. That is a huge deal if you're going melee heavy. Again, though, I think he's just as viable even without melee. If you're just going for the Flamer, or like Overwatch stratagem, I think he's also viable there. I want to say he's 60 points. He's either 55 or 60, so also quite cheap. Otherwise, like, same profile as the others, no invul, only a 3-up save, all that stuff. But hopefully, if you got him in a fat squad, like, hopefully you can keep him alive. I definitely like this guy. He's been really powerful almost every edition as well. I'd assume he's going to continue to stay powerful. Yet again, man, don't sleep on the Foul Blightspawn. Looks sick as hell as well. Alright, next up, so this is not a lieutenant, this is like a real deal character. The Lord of Virulence, one of the newer models for Death Guard. This guy's a badass. His abilities are like insane. On top of that, so he can only go on Terminators. Do be aware he's a Terminator, but he makes a perfect, Deathshroud make like perfect bodyguards for this guy, and it'll probably be the way you see him like the vast majority of the time. But he does have the Plague Spewer, so anti-infantry 2-up, auto-hitting, and twin-linked, so that's pretty awesome. D6 attacks, strength 5, minus 1 damage each, not bad in the least bit. He's actually okay in melee as well. He's got a heavy Plague Fist, so 5 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 8, minus 2 AP, 2 damage each, so all that's pretty good. For abilities, so this is where he like super pops, Master of Destruction. While this model is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes a ranged attack, you can re-roll the wound roll, so that's pretty awesome. Even with the Deathshroud, so they got their little like, what is it, anti-infantry 4-up little Plague Gauntlets, all of a sudden you're re-rolling the wounds. Math hammer-wise, that would be 75% conversion rate, so that's pretty awesome right there. His other one is excellent too, especially if you're going for the Plagueburst spam build. Basically, any model that he can see, any other model in it that has a blast weapon, they add 1 to their hit roll, and they have the Ignores Cover ability. That is excellent. If these guys are able to see their target, all of a sudden you're hitting on 2s, Defiler included as well. Even if they can't see their target, they're still hitting on 3s, and the Ignored Cover is like a pseudo, like +1 AP as well. He's only 115 points, so pretty cheap on top of all that. I really like this guy quite a bit. I was considering too, I'm not sure it's as viable as Tallyman, but you might consider, maybe try it, let me know how it goes, run him solo without a bodyguard. That said, I think it's worth giving him the Deathshroud as the, you know, as the ablative wounds or whatever. But regardless, especially if you're going for the Plagueburst Crawler, he is damn near an auto-include at that point. Got a pretty awesome model. He's got sort of like a Chad pose going on, which I definitely enjoy. Ooh, alright, next up we got Death Guard Demon Prince. So he's a lot cheaper than the other Demon Princes you normally see. He's 170 points, so not too bad there. Pretty awesome profile. So 7-inch move, relatively slow, but also relatively quick. T11, which is excellent. 2-up save and a 4-up invul, again, excellent. 10 wounds each. He also has a really good ability, so finally, we get a 6-up Feel No Pain. It does only affect infantry, so it's not going to affect himself, unfortunately, but you get the 6-inch bubble of, yeah, it's not even 6-inch, it's contagion range. So turn 3, it'd be a 9-inch bubble, so pretty huge right there. At only 170 points, like, I'm liking that. He also, too, he has a Plague Spewer, so the anti-infantry 2-up Flamer, so that's pretty chill right there. And then for melee, he's one of the better melee profiles you got. 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 8, minus 2 AP, and 3 damage each. That's pretty awesome. He also has a 14 attack sweep profile, strength 6, no AP, and 1 damage each, but still, man, 14 attacks, like, that'll clear up some cultists in the sort pretty easily. I like this guy a fair bit. Being able to finally get a feel no pain is, like, pretty awesome as well. Makes you feel like a classic Death Guard in that sense, and the model, too, this is like the old model, but I still like, this is one of my more favorite models for Death Guard as well. Looks like it fits the theme for the army perfect. I definitely like this guy. For 170 points, I don't think he's bad at all. Now, is a Chaos Daemons Demon Prince better? That's debatable, but again, this guy is like fairly cheap. Ooh, alright, last up we got Mr. Mortarion himself. 370 points, so fairly expensive, but cheaper than a knight with a very, like, similar profile. So, speaking of profile, it's really damn good. 10-inch move with fly, for what that's worth. T12, 2-up save with a 4-up invul. Then he has 16 wounds with a 5-up feel no pain. Again, a 5-up feel no pain is like a 50% boost, so he's basically like a knight, like a big knight. That's equivalent to 24 wounds, so that's pretty awesome for only 370 points. That's almost 100 point savings versus others. His weapons are alright, so you got Rotwind, it's going to be Blast, Dev Wounds, and Lethal Hits, so that's kind of clash with each other, but either way, you're still getting more wounds out of him. 18-inch range, D6 plus 3 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, minus 2 AP, 1 damage each, not bad at all. For melee, it's pretty alright as well, so the strike profile is only 5 attacks, unfortunately, but it does hit on 2s, strength 14, some of the best in the army, AP 3 and 4 damage each, so this guy's good. He'll clear up like Terminators and that sort of stuff. He should be able to kill a few of them, even vehicles, even knights in fact. That strength 14 is pretty big. He also has a sweep profile, which is pretty awesome. So 15 attacks, again, hit on 2s, strength 7, minus 1, 1 damage each, not bad in the least bit. Of course, they all have lethal hits as well, so when you're doing 15 of those, like, you get a few auto wounds on top of that. He does have, so host of plays, you get to choose between 1 and 3 boosts for your army. They're alright. So the disease influence is probably like the best one. Basically, any Death Guard within 6 inch of this guy, anytime they make an attack of any sort, so whether ranged or melee, you get to reroll wound rolls of 1. So that's pretty awesome. That helps you get like more wounds through, which we always like to see. The other option that I'd probably consider a lot is going to be the Miasma Pestilence. Any Death Guard within 6 inches, anytime a range attack targets them, you get the benefits of cover. Where that's mostly handy is if you're like rushing down the middle of the board, or maybe Morty himself is just like in the wide open or whatever. Getting cover from that is pretty awesome, because again, that's like a pseudo -1 AP, or +1 AP I should say, for your armor. So that is pretty valuable. Again, we're trying to stay alive. We're Death Guard, want to be resilient. The last one is like, it has some uses. Toxic Presence. You can, any Death Guard within 12 inches of them, they add 3-inch their contagion range. Where that would work most is going to be the Chaos Lords. So if you're going for the like mortal wound spam right there, alright, maybe turn 2 or turn 3 or whenever you switch into that profile. So there is some play there. His other ability, Lord of the Death Guard. While a friendly Death Guard's within 6 inches of you, you ignore any and all modifiers to either your rolls or any tests you have to take, aside from saving throws. So you will always hit on 3s or 2s if you're boosting it. And also, too, you'll always have objective control for what that's worth. Because, again, you got sticky objectives. So that's, like, alright to have. Not the biggest deal, but it is alright to have. It is nice that, like, you just ignore, like, stealth and any negatives to hit and that sort of stuff. So, all in all, like, hopefully you guys saw that, yeah, man, they actually do have some pretty okay profiles. Something that hopefully you also notice is that, on the whole, for the most part, they're cheaper than other, like, Chaos armies. World Eaters definitely pays, like, way more for most of their units than these guys, so you do get, like, a pretty good discount, especially, like, Blightlord Terminators and some of their characters. So, again, I don't think it's hopeless. Certain units are, like, actually pretty good. Predators, again, one of the best in the book. The Plagueburst Crawlers, again, some of the best in the book. The cute little Blight Haulers, love them. So definitely got some good options. Don't think it's hopeless, guys. Ooh, alright, so next up we're going to have allies, which, again, I think they have pretty good access to. I do think Nurgle brings, like, some pretty valid themes to this army, especially when we're talking about Nurglings. These guys have won me, like, so many matches for multiple reasons. Actually, I have a video, like, devoted to Nurglings, so if you want to learn more about, like, how to use them or whatever, be sure to check it out if you haven't already. So one of the huge things about demons in general, like demon allies for your Death Guard, is every single one of these guys can deep strike. that is like a pretty big deal for Death Guard, because otherwise you got a few options. You got the Terminators and whatnot, but otherwise that is something that you're going to struggle with. On top of that, though, so these guys also have Infiltrate. That is giant, because you are a slow army. Why not make your opponent feel like a slow army? All of a sudden, if you want to, or if you need to, you can move block. You could bring freaking 6 of these guys. They're battle line, and there's no limit, so long as it's under 500 points. So you bring 6 of these guys and just cover the entire, like, deployment zone, or 9 inches from. That's definitely a clever little way to do it there. Other than that, like, these guys are really good at scoring. That's going to be the main thing to use them for. I would bring these guys in almost every list, no matter what Chaos faction you're bringing. I would bring like 3 to 6 of these guys, and don't be afraid to keep them until turn 3 or turn 4, maybe even turn 5 until you deep strike them down. Because you gotta remember, guys, with TAC objectives, so the secondaries that you're doing, 10th edition, it's a big deal that you're able to like be anywhere on the board at any point in time. Having access to little 40-point little units that you can put anywhere, hide them in the little corner or whatever, giant deal. Like I said, these guys alone have won me plenty of matches, both from the move blocking and then the scoring. Personally, I look at these guys, when I look at like a 40-point squad of them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's like 3 to 5 victory points right there. That's just like how I look at them. Aside from that, like, terrible profile, 5-inch move, okay, it's not like the worst thing ever, but 5-inch move, T3, only a 6 up invul, but 4 wounds each, so that's pretty awesome. They do also have 4 attacks each with lethal hits. Sure, they only hit on 5s, and they're only strength 2 or whatever, but with that lethal hits, especially if you're running like a max squad, I believe you can go up to 9, by the way, let's double check. Yeah, you can bring freaking 9 of them in a squad. You actually will, like, plink a few wounds through, and trust me, you and your opponent are both going to have a really good laugh when you, like, plink a wound off a knight or whatever. I love these guys so much. Do not, like, skip out on Nurglings. If like, you thought they sucked or whatever, give them a shot. I swear to you, you can score a bunch of points with these guys. And again, do the move blocking, all sorts of fun little tactics with these dudes. Next up, we got Beast of Nurgle. I like these guys as, like, cheap backfield objective holders. And they also, too, have, like, pretty okay melee, so you could rush them forward if you wanted to. You could even, like, combine them with Slimux if you want to go, like, balls out on the, on the Beast of Nurgle. They got a sick model as well. Like, who doesn't love that model? Profile's pretty good too for only 75 points, so only a 6-inch move, but T9, 5 up invul and 7 wounds each. Their ability as well, so at the end of each phase, if they took any wounds, they regen all of them. So with that T9, like, they take dedicated firepower. They basically take like anti-tank firepower, which is awesome, because a lot of times your opponent's going to want to focus on like other units, so there's a very high likelihood that these guys will just sit on objective the entire game without being harassed at all. If they do get into melee, so it's dev wounds, which is excellent, 6 attacks, only hit on 4s, but strength 6, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each. There's a lot to like about these guys. Again, for only 75 points, you run them in squads of 1 to 2. Again, I'd probably stick with the one squad each. Again, it's just like cheap like objective holders or whatever. But again, I think these guys definitely have some play in Death Guard, pretty much any Chaos Army for that matter. Next up, we got Plague Drones. These are one of my more favorite, like, Nurgle units. I think they're, like, totally valid. They have a really, like, resilient profile is what it is. So, 10-inch moves, so pretty quick. T8, which is excellent. 5 up invul and 5 wounds each. It's only 120 points for 3 of them, so that's actually a pretty good, like, points to wounds ratio right there. They do have a blast range weapon with lethal hits, only 12-inch range, D3 attacks each, but again, it's blast, hits on 4s, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage each, so not like the biggest thing ever, but if you can get up to like a fat squad of Poxwalkers or Cultists or some other sort of chaff, yeah man, they'll kill a few of them. In melee, they're actually alright, so foul mouth parts, these are extra attacks, lethal hits again, 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, strength 5, minus 1 AP, 2 damage each, so that's pretty awesome. You get to getting the multi-damage out there. And then they do have a Plague Sword, which is just like, okay. Their ability is pretty good. If you're bringing a bunch of Nurgle, like 500 points worth, their ability is actually pretty alright. Death Heads. In your shooting phase, after it's shot, you choose one enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more of your attacks. Until the end of the turn, each time a friendly Nurgle demon makes an attack, you get to reroll the wound roll. So that's cool. If you bring these guys in like a great Unclean One or whatever, all of a sudden he's rerolling his wounds. So I do like that a fair bit. It's until the end of the turn as well. So if you bring like a Soul Grinder, better yet, he's rerolling his shooting and his melee, the wounds at least. I do like those both a fair bit. On top of that, you got the icon, so they'll have a 6-up leadership, and then give them the instrument, so +1 in their charge rolls. For only 120 points, this is not bad at all. Actually, like, compared to the profiles you have access to, it's actually one of the more, like, resilient ones, like, points to wound ratio or whatever. I like these guys a good bit. Helps how the models look, like, ultra sick. I freaking love the Plague Flies so much, man. Next up, so Soul Grinder. I would say this guy's probably better than the Defiler. Defiler. He is a little more expensive, 10 points more to be exact, 215 points. And that said, you get a damn good profile for that. So, 8-inch move, T11, so one of the more resilient units we have access to. 3-up save and a 4-up invul, that's crazy, with 14 wounds, like all of that. I love all of that. He also has the Harvester Cannon by default, so 36-inch range, only 3 attacks, but hitting on 3s, strength 10, minus 1 AP, 3 damage each. That is excellent. Because you're Nurgle, you get the Flim Bombardment, which is one of the better options as well. Blast, Indirect, and Lethal Hits, so all 3 of those already, like, fantastic. 36-inch range, so very good. D6 plus 1 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 7, minus 1, 2 damage each. You combine these with the Plagueburst Crawlers, suddenly you got a boatload of freaking indirect. That'd be a fun build. That'd be like a fun meme list. Just go like full indirect. I actually do like the idea of that. On top of that, they have excellent melee. So you get the Iron Claw and the Warp Sword or the Warp Claw. I would do the sword though. Iron Claw is excellent. So 5 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 16, minus 3 AP, D6 plus 2 damage. So some of the highest damage you have access to. You also get the Warp Sword, so 3 extra attacks, hit on 3s, strength 8, minus 2 AP, D6 damage. So again, in melee, this might very well be like the highest damage unit next to like a knight that you have access to. For only 215 points, I think they're, like, super valid. I think they are competitive, and there are ways, like, use them. You bring 2 of these guys and then some Nurglings on top of it, like, yeah, man. And again, the model's sick. Even the real one. This is, like, the Forge World one right here, but even the legit one from Games Workshop looks sick as hell. Do not sleep on the Soul Grinder. T11 is actually a pretty big deal. 4-up invul as well. Like, this guy's crazy. He's crazy good. Next up, we got Demon Prince of Chaos. You can do either on foot or the flying version. I prefer the on foot one. He has a really good ability. So Unholy Vigor. Once per battle, at the start of any phase, you can use your ability. Until the end of that phase, you get a 3-up invul. Again, this plays into we're playing a resilient army. That's one of the best saves you can get access to. On top of that, he's going to be T11 because you're Nurgle. 8-inch move, 2-up save with a 4-up invul, so ultra resilient right there. 10 wounds. He is pretty spendy. I want to say he's 195, somewhere around there. He does have the Infernal Cannon, so he basically has a heavy bolter. And then he does have the regular, like, Demon Prince, like, strike profile. So again, 6 attacks, hit on 2s, excellent. Strength 8, minus 2 AP, 3 damage each. So definitely like all that. Also, too, is Prince of Darkness Aura. So, while a friendly, like, demon unit of any kind, which would be Nurgle, I don't know why I mentioned that. While a friendly demon's within 6 inches, you get the Stealth ability. So, -1 to get hit at range. You do the 3-up invul, and you're getting hit, doing a -1 to hit when people are targeting you at range. Yeah, it adds up to a lot. He is a bit spendy. Like, do you bring a Death Guard Demon Prince instead? Probably. He is quite a bit cheaper, but this guy's, like, a good backup. Or, again, maybe you want to do, like, a meme-ish list. Like, it might be competitive, but you can bring a boatload of, like, Demon Princes. You can bring 3 Death Guard and 3 of these guys. Like, I think that would be, like, a fun build to at least try. Because, again, these guys are pretty resilient. They're expensive, but you got that 2-up save and the 4-up invul with the T11. All those combined means, like, yeah, these guys will be hard to take care of. Very scary. Your opponent's definitely going to want to, like, target them down if they can. Lets the rest of your army get up the board, hopefully. Next up, we got my favorite model, probably my favorite model in all of 40k, or he's up there, favorite looking one, Horticulous Slimux. So the reason this guy's so poppin' is just how, like, efficient he is points-wise. He's only 120 points, and for that, you get a T10, 3-up save, 4-up invul, 10 wound model. He also has a boatload of 3 damage attacks, so all around, just like efficient in most ways. His Lopping Shear, so his main attack is going to be 4 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 6, minus 2 AP, 3 damage each, so that's excellent. You're getting the 3 damage in your army. He also gets Acidic Maw. These are Dev Wounds, extra attacks. Only 2 of them, only hit on 4s, but strength 7, minus 4 AP, excellent, and 3 damage each. I like all of that. For ability, so the first one's going to be Beast Handler. You can attach him to Beast to Nurgle, by the way, so if you do, basically you re-roll your charge rolls, so that's pretty awesome, and then once per battle you do a Heroic Intervention for free. Again, that's pretty awesome as well, because that's sort of like free movement in a sense, or hopefully a free charge, or at least like free combat, I should say. Definitely like that right there. He also has Seed the Garden of Nurgle, so at the end of your movement phase, if he's within an area terrain, until the end of the battle, that terrain is considered to be in your Shadow of Chaos. So, I don't know, if you brought, like, I don't know, Great Unclean One or something, so then they can get a 6-inch charge out of that, or come in, yeah, do a 6-inch deep strike. So I do like it a fair bit. Again, for 120 points, like, this guy's, like, pretty damn efficient. Again, that model looks sick as hell as well. So definitely keep an eye on this guy if you want to have like a beautiful list or like a fun looking list. Definitely, I think this guy's like one of the better options you'd get. Next up, we got Great Unclean One. So he's only, I want to say, I believe he's 280 points, and Rotigus is 285, so just a tidbit cheaper. It's debatable. Is this guy better than Morty? Like, I don't know. It's debatable. He doesn't buff your army like Morty does, but otherwise, like, I'd say he probably does more damage on average. So, speaking of, you can do, so I would do the Bile Sword and the Flail. The Flail is going to be 6-inch range, D6 plus 1 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 7, minus 2 AP and 2 damage each, so pretty good. It is only 6-inch range, that kind of stinks. He also has Putrid Vomit on top of that, so auto-hitting Flamer, 12-inch range, D6 plus 3 attacks, hit on 2s for some reason. Oh, that's right, they FAQ'd it, so it auto-hits. Strength 5, minus 2 AP, 1 damage each, so that's cool, you got a Flamer. If you do the Bile Sword, which I think you should, so the strike profile, lethal hits, of course, 6 attacks, hit on 2s, strength 8, minus 2 AP, and D6 damage, so that's pretty up there. Morty's only doing like 4 damage each, this guy's doing D6. Okay, on average, that actually does equal Morty, so maybe I take back what I say about him being better, but he is way cheaper. He's literally like 100 points cheaper, so do better than mine. For his abilities, though, they're pretty good. So the first one only affects Nurgle Demons. Basically, they get a 6-up Feel No Pain within 6 inches of him. This would include himself as well, so that's pretty awesome. Get that, you know, what is that? That's 1/6 the amount of wounds going up there, so he's basically a 24 wound equivalent, T12, I might add. On top of that, though, he's got Nurgle's Rot. This would be like the reason to bring him, and definitely like a spicy little combo. At the end of your movement phase, you can choose one enemy unit within 12 inches of this model until the start of your next movement phase, so a good while. Subtract 1 from the toughness characteristic. You combine that with your Death Guard ability, all of a sudden you can do minus 2 toughness on just about any model you want. You gotta remember, this guy can deep strike, and it has 12-inch range, so you're almost guaranteed, like, well, you are just about guaranteed, unless they're screened out, to do the minus 1 toughness on anybody you want. You combine that with the Helbrute as well, bada bing bada boom, man. Like, it doesn't matter where they are, you got -2 toughness on it. I think that's a pretty damn strong ability. But I like, too, both of those combined. If you're bringing, like, War Dogs or Chaos Knights or whatever, they will also benefit from that. I think that's very, very powerful, very, like, sneaky little ability to toss in there. I like this guy a fair bit. For 280 points, like, yeah, pretty good. I should mention 4-up invul with that 20 wounds as well, and the T12, like, this guy's going to take some hits for sure. People will probably focus him down, or they're going to ignore him. They're going to do one of those two. Either ignore him completely, or devote, like, all their firepower into him, and they might not be able to take him out, even if they do focus him down. I like him a lot. That said, he's got competition. Rotigus is pretty damn good as well. So he's only 285, so barely, like, only 5 points more than the other guy. Same profile, except he does have 22 wounds. No 6-up Feel No Pain, unfortunately. For his range, he has Streams of Brackish Filth. So dev wounds, ignores cover, auto-hitting. 2d6 attacks, strength 7, minus 2 AP and 1 damage each, so that's a nice little flamer. Definitely will clear out some infantry, like, pretty well. For melee, he's no slouch, so Gnarl Rod, of course it's going to be lethal hits. The strike profile will be 7 attacks, hit on 2s, strength 8, minus 3 AP and 3 damage each, so that's nice, you get some 3 damage in there. For his abilities, so Virulent Blessing, it's okay. It depends, like, what other, like, demon allies you're bringing along. But basically, at the start of the fight phase, you can choose one enemy unit within 18 inches invisible. Until the end of the phase, each time a Nurgle demon attacks that model, you add 1 to the damage characteristic. All of a sudden, your Nurglings are doing 4 damage to lethal hit attacks each. So that right there is just hilarious and, like, is almost reason alone to want to bring them. Unfortunately, it does only, of course, only affects, like, the demons or whatever. but there are some fun little, like, combos right there. His other one, though, so Deluge of Nurgle, this is probably why you bring him. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of the model, so it could be multiple units, could be like half their army, you have their move and their objective control characteristics. That is huge. Movement wins games. Now, unfortunately, you can't use the stratagem to deep strike within 6 inches or whatever, so you would have to, like, deep strike and then the next turn get into range of them. Or you can do the rapid ingress, which is probably, like, the way to do it, and then move into range, but that is, like, a huge deal right there. Again, you make other armies feel like Death Guard being, like, really slow or whatever. In fact, having their movement, a lot of times they're going to be even slower than you. That really is a huge deal, and yet again, this guy's, like, he has a knight profile, like a big knight profile. He's going to take some damage, like, take care of. It runs an excellent distraction Carnifex as well. 285 is kind of expensive, but it's not like outrageously expensive as a distraction or whatever. I do think between these two, like, pretty good competition. I do lean towards the Great Unclean One, just because I like that -1 toughness. But again, being able to mess with people's movement and objective control for that matter, pretty big deal. I like, yeah, I definitely like Rotigus. And again, guys, the models, like, they just look sick. Ooh, alright, next up, we're on to Chaos Knights. Very valid ally for Death Guard. So first up, you got the Despoiler. So again, when you're bringing allies, like, you normally want to fill a hole in your list. What the Despoiler brings, he brings a boatload of, like, very quality ranged firepower and a very good, like, stat line on top of that. Don't ever forget as well that these big ones, at least, they have the towering rule. So again, they can they basically get, like, true line of sight. If they can see a model through, like, a window or whatever it is, they can still shoot at them. For the loadout, me personally, I would go the double, like, battle cannon. The battle cannon's nuts. It's pretty, like, nuts, guys. So 72-inch range with rapid fire, and the rapid fire literally doubles its output and the number of shots it's doing. If you bring 2 of those cannons, it would be what? It would be, oh my god, it'd be 12 plus 4d6 shots, hitting on 3s, strength 10, -1, 3 damage each with blast. That is insane. You can basically, like, just pick up a big squad of, like, elite infantry or whatever. The -1 AP might hurt, but the 3 damage, like, should hopefully help it get through. On top of that, so his first ability doesn't matter. The War Dog doesn't matter at all. But the Seething Hatred, he gets to reroll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll. If you're doing, okay, if you're doing the double battle cannon, like, that doesn't matter that much. But if you do the thermal cannon for some reason, okay, maybe that would come into play. I will say the thermal cannon, like, it is blast, Milta 6, 24-inch range, 2d3 attacks, strength 12, -4 AP, d6 damage. So I could see the argument of 1 Milta and 1 battle cannon, like, that is there, especially with that reroll. Like, you should be able to hopefully get that Milta 6 freaking through. So I do like this guy a fair bit. The other option for the big knights is going to be the Desecrator. This guy's more of like a mixed role profile, so I do like having that. His Laser Destructor is going to be 72-inch range, hidden on 2s, which is great, strength 18, which is nuts, -4 AP, d6 plus 3 damage. He does also have a his Obsessive Ruthlessness ability. Each time you target a monster or vehicle, you get the dev wounds. So unfortunately, you only have 6 attacks, so the odds of that going on, or 3 attacks, and the odds of that going off, like, aren't that high. But if it does, that'd do, like, a huge chunk of damage to somebody. On top of that, like I said, he's mixed profile. I personally would probably go for the Claw most times, reason being the Tank Shock stratagem. It's only, so for the Strike profile, it'll only be 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 20, -3 AP, 8 damage each. Like, that is pretty wild right there. Again, with the Tank Shock, you're rolling 20 dice. That'd be an average of, like, 4 to 5 wounds, and if you roll a little hot, maybe you'll do, like, 6 more wounds. I definitely like that a fair bit. The Reaper Chainsword is also valid as well. It has better AP, still only 4 attacks, only strength 14, -4 AP, and flat 6 damage each, so that's not bad at all. For Sweep is where it really shines versus the Claw. You would get 12 attacks, strength 9, -3 AP, 2 damage each. The Claw would be 8 attacks, strength 10, -2, 3 damage each. So you do got choices there. Again, I would go for the Warp Strike Claw most of the time, mainly because of the Tank Shock, but also too, just like being able to wound like almost any vehicle in the game on a 2-up is pretty awesome with a flat 8 damage. This guy will definitely do some work if he gets into combat. Now that said, we talked about the big knights. Optimally, and what you'll see most of the time, it's going to be the War Dogs. And I do think if you're going like a tournament or doing a competitive list or whatever, yeah, you definitely go War Dogs. Now, all of them are valid just about. Like, all of them are like equally as good. Most people, for good reasons, are going to be drawn to the Brigand. So all these guys share the same profile. So 12-inch move, blazing fast for Death Guard, T10, 3-up save with a 5-up involve versus range, 12 wounds, and then 8 objective control, which is pretty nuts for a vehicle. This guy, he hits on 2s, so this guy's like fully ranged. Hitting on 2s, which is excellent. He hits both the chain cannon and the like big melta-gun. Chain cannon's gonna be 12 attacks, strength 6, -1, 1 AP, so that's good at like clearing up infantry, whether it's marines or chaff, like he'll do pretty good either or. And then Demon Breath Spear, that's your anti-vehicle. 2 attacks, again, hitting on 2s, guys, that's excellent. Strength 12, -4 AP, D6 damage each with the melt of 4. So you get him within 12 inches, like he will be like tearing up vehicles pretty well. Only 2 attacks, unfortunately, but still, that's pretty damn good right there. For abilities, so the Brigand ability, each time you make a range attack, if you target the closest eligible enemy unit, you improve the armor pin by 1. So that's awesome. All of a sudden, his melt is going to AP 5, which literally is like the best in the army, at least without stratagems or whatever. It also, you gotta think, whenever you see like closest eligible unit, you can be sneaky with that, man. If you like hide behind cover so you can only see one unit and it is technically the closest, you will get that ability. So there's ways like almost guarantee you get the +1 AP. Definitely like the Brigand. 150 points is very fair. He makes other vehicles look bad for how good he is at that price. Definitely consider this guy if you need if you want some very good shooting for your army. Next up, we got Huntsman. So originally, when I looked at the War Dogs, I was always like, oh, Brigand every single time. Brigand, like 9 out of 10 times, you're going Brigand. I actually, like, over time, I actually really like the Huntsman. I like him because he's mixed role. So he's good at, like, running up the board with the rest of your army. He doesn't have to just sit back. He can actually go to no man's land and, like, you know, wrestle over the no man's land objectives, which I like quite a bit. He's a little cheaper, 140 points, and like I said, mixed profile. So he has a Melta gun, and then he has the melee. So for Melta, it's just like the other guy. So strength 12, -4, D6 damage. For his melee, though, Reaper Chain Talon, Strike is going to be 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 10, -3 AP, and 3 damage each, so that's pretty good right there. And then his Huntsman ability is really what makes him pop. Each time you target a monster or vehicle, so some of the harder units out there, and like the scarier ones, you get to reroll a wound roll and a damage roll of 1, so that's awesome. That helps guarantee when your attacks get, well, that helps guarantee that you get your wounds through, and then when you do get your wounds through, that you get good damage through. He also has the Melt of 4, so don't forget that. So you can do up to 10 damage if you get really lucky with each attack. I actually like this guy a good bit. Again, he can run up the board with the other guys. Right along there with him is going to be the Stalker. Slightly cheaper, 135, so a tidbit cheaper. What I like about this guy is you can choose his loadout. So you can do either the Chain Cannon or the Demon Breath Spear. Either or are valid. I personally would probably stick with Demon Breath most of the time, because again, we're Death Guard, we need anti-vehicle. For his melee, though, I really like the Slaughter Claw. 4 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 12, -3 AP, D6 +2 damage. So this guy will, like, rip through vehicles and monsters, and even elite infantry and whatnot really damn well. For his ability, it's actually pretty good. So each time you make an attack that targets an enemy unit, if there are no other enemy units within 6 inches of your target, you add 1 to the wound roll. So all of a sudden, you're like wounding most things in the game on 2-ups. I do like that a fair bit. He's also a character that's both a blessing and a curse. I'm pretty sure I might be loading a list that doesn't have many characters, but I did bring allies. This guy helps shore that up. I should say Death Guard characters. This guy helps shore that up, because there are certain missions where, like, you have to, like, empower the objective with a character or whatever. This guy helps play into that. Now, do be careful of, like, Assassinate and Bring It Down, those two combined especially. And then again, it depends on the list. If you're not bringing many other vehicles or many other characters, like, it's no big deal. Again, I really do like this guy because you get to choose your loadout. Probably better than the Huntsman. I don't know. It's sort of debatable. I will say, overall, even though I said this guy's, like, right up there, Brigand is probably still the best choice, especially for Death Guard. I do think if you're bringing any allies at all, War Dogs are probably the best ones you can bring. If you're struggling, you've been losing a lot of matches lately, or you just want to kick your friend's butt or something, yeah, man, just bring 3 Brigands and call it a day. I don't think you can go wrong with them. Alright, so that's going to cover the units. Now I do have a couple combos I want to show you. Let me, here, I need to grab one model, though, because there's one I forgot. All right, I think I kind of touched on these as we were going through, so I'll go kind of quick. The first combo is going to be the Great Unclean One plus 8 Helbrute. Basically, you can get -2 toughness to pretty much anything you want. Again, you deep strike this guy within 12 inches, or 9 inches. You're trying to go for the charge, most likely. And then this guy can just sit back and shoot. I will say, technically, you don't need the Helbrute. You can do any Death Guard. I just like the Helbrute because it would get you, like, at range or whatever. If you don't do a Helbrute, maybe you, like, deep strike it with a little buddy or whatever. You just do need to get within contagion range. So I think that's a clever little build. Is it the most, like, competitive thing ever? Maybe not. I guess time will tell or whatever. I hope somebody tries this because, I only, like, realized it yesterday when I was researching for this video. I do think it's, like, a cute little combo. The next one is going, like, super flamer heavy. So you go 4 flamers, so you bring a max squad of Plague Marines with 4 flamers, you put the foul Blightspawn and then Malignant Plaguecaster there, all of a sudden you have 6 auto-hidden weapons, so this is like a little, like, Overwatch, like, murder machine or whatever. You're gonna do a boatload of auto-hitting attacks coming out. The Malignant Plaguecaster and the Foul Blightspawn, they're both multi-damage attacks they're going out as well, on top of these guys. Like, I think it's a pretty clever and pretty fun little build. It does get spendy, because what? We're looking at 75, plus I think it's like 60, plus 200, so whatever that is, I'm terrible at math. I think, 340 points, something like that. Is that worth it? I don't know, but it'd be very, very, very fun. Even I'm like super tempted to try it. I bet you could catch some people like off guard with it. Obviously, you tell them before the game like what the loadouts are and everything, but like if they forget, that's sort of on them at that point. For a tournament, we're not talking casual play. Lastly, you got the, this is just like cheese build. You do Mortarion with like 3 Chaos Lords with their Plague Marines or whatever. And basically you use his ability to boost their aura. Maybe give one of them enhancement to boost it even further. All of a sudden, I think you can get them up to like a 15-inch aura on turn 3 and beyond or whatever. That's pretty awesome, man. If you manage to get all 3 of these guys, like, within range of, like, half your opponent's army or most of your opponent's army, you're going to be rolling 3 dice for each unit, and each 4-up's going to be a D3 wound. Imagine if you get lucky and you roll 3 4-ups on a unit, 3 D3 mortal wounds to somebody, just, like, at the end of each freaking turn, that will add up. Yet again, it's the most competitive thing ever. Time will tell. I have seen some people talking about this combo, though. I have seen, like, some people that were spamming the Lords because they thought they were, like, crazy good or whatever. So, again, something to bear in mind right there. Gets kind of spendy, and you would be infantry heavy. But, again, very fun, very, like, flavorful, very Death Guardy. You're rodding people with disease as they just come near you. I like that quite a bit. Alright, so that's all the units, all the combos. Next up, we'll do some lists. So I wrote up a few. I couldn't find any, like, tournament list that I was able to load. So these are all going to be ones that I wrote up. Either way, so first up, alright, we got the classic build. So this should be, alright, yeah, I was going to say, it should be pure Death Guard. And again, this is sort of like a classic build. This is something like a lot of people will play, and especially for like newer players, I think it's like something that most people should be able to run. Most people will have these units, so that's a big reason I want to include it. Here, let me turn that back on so we can see the name. So, all right, we got 2 MSU squads of Plague Marines going in a Rhino, so that's pretty awesome. Should be obvious. He just runs up the board and tries to like gum stuff up, try to get some objectives. You got 2 men squads of Blightlords. One has the Lord of Virulence, and another has that Terminator Sorcerer. Again, this guy's like freaking nuts. I think the Terminator Sorcerer is like insanely good. You got 1 Myphitic Blight Hauler. Yeah, he had the points left over, and he's good for like skirmishing. He tries to get up to the midfield and like hold down the central objectives, while obviously shooting tanks. 3 squads of Cultists, just cheap scoring, board control, screening, etc. Gotta have Morty. If we're going to classic list, you gotta bring Morty. And then 3 squads of Plagueburst Crawlers. They will benefit from the Lord of Virulence. So, that is debatable. These guys move so slow. 4-inch move, you probably still want to deep strike them, so you wouldn't get the benefit until turn 2 or beyond, but that's not the biggest deal ever. And again, they move so slow, I think it's worth it. Probably worth more than getting the +1 to hit and all that. This is a classic list. Again, I think almost any Death Guard player should own these models, and of course you can swap stuff out. All the lists are in the description below, so if you guys want to tweak them and make them your own, maybe net list them or try them out on your end, try them out on TTS. It's really easy to, you know, load up an army on Tabletop Simulator. All those ideas are, or all those lists are down there, so be sure to check them out. And it'll list like the enhancements and all that sort of stuff as well. Next list, let's see. So I didn't memorize off the top of my. I wrote these yesterday, so I'm trying to remember, like, what did I write? I think the next one's a skew list. Oh no, okay. So this is the combo I was talking about earlier with Great Unclean One and the Helbrute. So, this is also an example of bringing allies as well. So, 3 Brigands, if you're doing tournaments or whatever, and somebody brings Death Guard, I think this will be an extremely common sight. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Nurglings. Again, you can do either move blocking or deep strike them. Better yet, like deep strike them for the scoring. I would think in this case, put like 3, maybe even 4 of them into reserve for the scoring, and then one of them you just like try to move block the most important unit, or maybe use 2 of them for move blocking, or maybe your opponent's like a melee army, world leaders or something. I mean, do be careful about like gifting movement or whatever, but you could like just block the entire deployment, hope you get first turn, and then they're like really blocked in right there. Aside from that, we got Lord of Virulence again. So if you're bringing like 3 Plagueburst Crawlers, you should heavily consider this guy. I thought with some of the lists of like not bringing him, but I'm like, ooh, he boosts them so much. Like, I still think it's worth it. You got the Deathshroud, mostly just to be like cheap bodyguard for this guy, and it does give you some more deep strike, which I do like. Notice there's, okay, and then the Helbrute, and then the Great Unclean One. So again, you get the -2 toughness, which plays in for the Brigands and the freaking Plagueburst Crawlers. Like, that's insane. You'll be winning a bunch of stuff on 3s, maybe even 2s a lot of the times. And then, of course, you got the Cultists. Gotta have the Cultists, guys. They're cheap. They're cheap and cheerful. I think they do so much for the scoring and the screening and all that. I think they're kind of vital. If you didn't notice, I didn't include Poxwalkers on here. I don't like Poxwalkers, like, at all. Everybody has their own style, but with a 4-inch movement and the 8-up leadership, terrible save, all that sort of stuff, melee only, I might add, terrible, like, profile for the melee as well. I do think, like, Cultists are just superior in every way. I believe Cultists are 5 points cheaper as well. Poxwalkers are 60 points. Yeah, they're just, like, in my opinion, they're just, like, dumb. I do think this is a fairly competitive list. You could probably change out some of the stuff. You'll see the next list, I do change out some of the stuff. Those Brigands, though, they're definitely going to pull their weight. Your opponent's probably going to target them down first. And it gives everybody else time to do whatever they want. Let's get these guys out of the way. Actually, I'm gonna delete them. Again, the lists are in the description if you want to take a look at them. What was the next one? Alright, this one I totally forget. Alright, this is a skew list. T10 Bugaloo. Basically bring a bunch of, like, tough profiles. So let's take a look. Aha, alright. Yet again, I think this one's pretty competitive for Death Guard. I think it's pretty competitive. So, basically bring as much T10 as I could. So this time we got 1 Destructor and 2 of the Annihilators. I could see you swapping that around, although I'm pretty sure this list is like exactly 2,000 points. Check the description below. But you got those, so 3 T10 right there. You got 2 Huntsmen and a Stalker. So yeah, that's right. This was the one. I only had 1 character, which is Morty, so I want to be sure I had another, just in case I come across that mission. And then, of course, 3 Plagueburst Crawlers. No Lord of Virulence this time, but I think the rest of the list sort of makes up for it. And aside from that, gotta have the Nurglings. I'm a Nurgling fanatic, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're in every single list. Okay, I guess I didn't do it in the classic list, but the next ones I load, don't be surprised if they're in there. Again, 3 Cultists. I already explained why I like them so much. This list, I think it's pretty fun, so... Plagueburst sit back, obviously. The Predators will sit back as well. One sits on objective, and then the others, I kind of try to get close to the corners. I forget the name of it. I always forget the name. But there's the secondary where you need to be within 9 inches of a quarter, like the literal corner. So I think keeping these guys within movement range. Remember, they move like, it's either 10 or 12 inches. I forget off the top of my head. But keep them like somewhat near, so long as they're still able to like see targets. And it's not like vital you do that, but do keep that in mind. Otherwise, the War Dogs are going to run up the table, try to get the central objectives, along with some of the Cultists, and then all the Nurglings go in deep strike and try to score. Again, I think this is one of the more competitive ones. If you're running Death Guard at a tournament, I do think, yeah, this could be, like, up there. You might have an okay chance of, like, placing highly, mostly because, you know, you got a boatload of T10. If somebody doesn't have enough anti-tank, like, they're going to be in for a rough time, especially with Morty. Morty'd run an excellent distraction. Very expensive, but he might buy the rest of your army time to, like, stay alive or whatever. So I do enjoy this list. Definitely, I'm definitely planning on giving this one a run. This will probably be the first one I try. This or the last list I loaded. All right, what's the last one? Because I remember I wanted to get some variety, so hopefully I met my goal. Oh, okay. The anti-Death Guard list. So I remember when the index first came out, this was a style that a lot of people were talking about. Basically, you max out your allies. You max out your allies, so you bring as few Death Guard as you have to. If you're really upset with Death Guard or whatever, like this is worth considering. Here, let me delete this just so I'm sure I didn't mix anything up. All right, DG4, anti-Death Guard. Okay, I think this is like a fun list as well. It just like looks fun, like looks kind of cool in my opinion. So again, we're maxing out the allies. So we got, what is it, three Huntsmen, Rebot Slimux, 2 units of Plague Drones, and then 3 units of Nurglings. So you got a fair amount of demons right there. I did bring some Chaos Spawn. Again, I wanted to like spice it up a little. I don't think they're that bad. 8-inch move with the 5-up Feel No Pain, okay melee, like they're pretty efficient. You got here, let me separate some of these out. So let's get the, get anything that's not Death Guard off to the side. Alright, for the Death Guard, we do have a Lord of Virulence. We want to buff the Plagueburst. You got a Deathshroud just as a bodyguard, 2 units of Cultists, or excuse me, 3 units of Cultists. So again, this is like going anti-Death Guard. Maybe you're really upset with like how the index turned out. This could be a fun list to run. This has this has a boatload of models. I think this is kind of set up for scoring. It has like okay odds at like board control, running the table, holding down objectives. Again, you got sticky objectives with all of your Death Guard as well. Fortunately, not the allies, but whatever. It's not that big a deal. Remember, too, you can deep strike all the demons. So for every list I showed, any and every demon you bring in, you can deep strike. You could reserve the War Dogs as well. I'm not sure if you would. I would just like hide them behind terrain on your deployment and then bring them out on your turn or whatever. This one, again, I think could do okay. If you've been struggling and you want to run a fun list, give this one a look-see. I don't think it's like that terrible at all. The Plagueburst Crawlers, so that is a theme. I'm pretty sure like every single list I've loaded has 3 Plagueburst Crawlers in it. In my opinion, they're just like that good. Getting the good indirect, the fact that like you normally have trouble getting across and getting in range of people, those sort of shore it up. So I do like them quite a bit. You boost them with the Lord of Virulence as well. Like they get especially good. Okay, let's see, I might have a bonus list. Okay, alright, this is just like a casual list, I believe. This is fun melee, so I don't remember what I brought. Okay, yeah. So this goes full on melee. Truthfully, you probably want some Rhinos. Maybe delete one of the squads of Terminators and bring Rhinos. But that's right, this is the one that has 3 Sorcerers and Terminator armor. These really are some of your best like shooting that you have access to, so I do like it. Got 3 max squads of Plague Marines. They're all maxed out melee. I gave them a Tallyman for +1 to hit and the CP regen, and then a Foul Blightspawn for fight first and the 2 damage Flamers. I could see too, you could bring 4 Flamers and then just make the rest of them melee. That is completely viable and may actually be smart, because you can only bring 4 of the heavy Plague Weapons, and then you just bring like 2 of the, whatever they're called, the Accursed Weapon profiles. So I do like that. Gotta have the Cultists. Only 1 squad, unfortunately. Like I said, 3 units of Terminators. I like those guys a boatload. And then only 2 units of Plagueburst. Now, there's a lot of changes you can make. You delete the Terminator. You know, you gotta find points somewhere. Maybe delete the Cultist. Or better yet, like have one of these squads and get rid of some of the characters. And bring the Lord of Virulence instead. That is one option. You also, too, what else could you do? Bring some Rhinos. So, yeah, delete one of these squads, bring 2 Rhinos, because you totally afford it, and then with the extra 100 points, maybe bring, like, I don't know, Malignant Plaguecaster, something like that. So, definitely got some options there. This was just, like, a fun one I wanted to show you. The other way you could do it, too, delete all the characters and just split all the Plague Marines, split them up into MSU squads. That way you get way more board control. So, yeah, guys, that is the army reviews slash some of the list I wanted to show. I would be very, very curious to hear your guys' experience with Death Guard. Like, have any of you had success, whether casual or tournament? I would love to hear it. I would really love to see your guys' list. Like, definitely post on the list you've been running. That way, not only I get ideas of what you're doing, but anybody else who reads those comments gets a good idea of, like, what you guys are running. As a heads up, so on weekend, I've been doing live streams lately. I actually did a live stream, I think it was last weekend or the weekend before, doing the Death Guard model range review. that was one of the more fun like live streams I've done. So check it out if you guys are interested in how the army looks. I had a bunch of people throwing a bunch of fun stuff. Those, like I said, those live streams have been a blast. I'm doing another one this weekend, tomorrow, hopefully if I post this video today, it'll be tomorrow. But I normally do it around 2 p.m. Pacific. Tomorrow will actually be like, I think it's 1 p.m. Pacific. But either way, if you guys want to hang out, talk 40k, talk Death Guard, or any army for that matter, come check it out. Again, if you guys haven't already, like, do consider subscribing, do consider giving the video a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate that. Maybe leave a comment. Again, I'd love to hear about your armies, but, you know, if you just want to say hi or something, I won't complain. But anyways, hope this has some good info for you guys. Like I said, I wanted to put something, like, positive out there. I do think Death Guard are really fun. Preparing for this video, I had a blast, like, coming up with, like, ooh, that looks really fun. Ooh, I want to try that. Writing the list, like, I kept going, like, way over points because I want to try all these, like, fun different little combos and stupid little builds or whatever. So this was a blast, like, prepare for. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you got any questions or if there's anything you would have rated differently, etc. Appreciate you guys coming by, and best of luck out there, guys.